Now you tell me.
Yeah.
I'm still on my phone. Hey, guys. G'day. Welcome to Aussie Craft Distillers. Shooting the shit. Yes, we're in high energy tonight, which is cool. And we got a really special guest tonight. Someone wanted to get on right from the start, but the timing's never been right. But the timing is right. The timing is right tonight. So, without further ado, we're going to say g'day to Dave from Ostra Distillers. G'day, Dave.
G'day, Dave.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. We've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, and we've got a few people on, and we're going to have some fun because, as I say to people, this is the Graham Norton show with more alcohol. That's when we created this thing. That was the brief, wasn't it?
Did we have a brief?
No. It was my idea. It stayed in my head.
Yep.
Like
that's the brief that you gave yourself.
Yep.
A lot of ideas should stay in his head, but anyway, that's another story.
Yeah. Mumbler in the back. Come on, speak up, Todd. You got to speak up tonight. Come on. All right. So we've got an action pack tonight. We got a lot to cover.
You remind me of Papa Smurf tonight.
Why?
Blue shirt, red hat, big beard.
Yeah, it's getting cold. I go to beanies in winter. And actually, just a side note. So last night I had the great opportunity to meet the legendary Ian Croucher from North Star Spirits. And Ian I've known for many years, independent bottler from Scotland, doing some amazing shit, great branding, great product. So I rocked up last night with my beanie. I had a jacket on. I thought, Jesus, I look like Ian tonight. This is cool. We'll get some shots with me and Ian. Look, nothing like me. No hat, no nothing. So
no,
didn't come off.
And he's shorter than you too.
Yeah. Well, when he saw me, he goes, "Geez, you're taller than I thought." And I went, "You're shorter than I thought." Anyway, I digress.
Good whiskey though.
Oh fuck yeah. So we had a great night. Thanks to the whiskey list, and it was a good experience. But tonight the focus is Dave. It's Ostra, and as I say, the sleeping giant awakes. So tonight we're going to cover off some stuff.
Hopefully I don't bore anyone tonight. Well,
I think the cardboard cutout barrels you got on the back, they're really impressive. It's for those that don't know, that is real. That is wood. That is
it is wood.
That's serious casks.
Roughly how many casks are behind you there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
There's at least 3.
At least 3. More than 3 and less than 1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, I wish I had many more.
Don't we all?
Okay, so let's rip into it. So we'll start with the easy one first. So what is everyone drinking tonight? And everyone at home, what are you drinking? You're drinking Australian. That's the prerequisite for watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kick off because I've got something a little bit different tonight. So I'm a big fan of Brookie's Mac, but I'm a big fan of Brookie's
right here.
Bloody camera. I always go up there.
I know.
It drives me nuts. Anyway, the barrel-aged Mac. So they took and this is a macadamia and wattle seed liqueur. They put it in a barrel. And this stuff is just next level. But I'm going to partner it tonight with a bit of Fever Tree. I'll do it again. I keep going up. Fever Tree Ginger Ale. So that's my go-to tonight. And what we're also having is this little baby.
Ginsky,
which is a collaboration of Craftworks and Karoo. But the reality is Craftworks didn't do the work. It was Karoo. All I did is supply the barrel. And Ali is sat down and crafted a amazing gin to go with a sherry cask, my very first barrel, that she treated the sherry cask as a botanical. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to try that tonight.
And it's aged for 2 years, so it is a
Ginsky. It's a Ginsky. Yeah, it's a Ginsky.
I like the bottle. It's very, very square.
It's a weapon. It's an absolute weapon. This thing, it really is.
Very nice.
Anyway, so Dave, what are you drinking, mate?
I am drinking my own. So I'm in the distillery, right? So we're drinking earlier. We're doing a tasting today of our chocolate malt. So we've made a chocolate malt.
Nice.
And so it's barrel strength, and I've thrown a dash of water into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get some notes on that shortly and a bit more of the story.
Nice.
Oh, it's Kate Byron's in the house tonight. Yep.
I've got a bottle, so I'm going to be having a couple of drams of that, I reckon.
That's a nice drop too.
Eddie Brooke and Jim McEwen, which I just find very interesting. I can't wait to find out more.
Oh, we'll have a segue into Jim McEwen a bit later on.
I know.
Oh, no. Very good. Very good. All right. And Todd, what do you got, mate? What are you drinking?
So I'm doing Yak Creek tonight, starting with a bit of a spiced rum.
Nice. Jamie. Yeah, Jamie from Yak Creek, from Yak and Dander. Yeah.
And then probably finish off this bottle, maybe.
Oh, it's a yak night.
Oh,
Yak's
wow.
in the house tonight. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Very nice.
Nice, very nice. All right. Well, why I pour my barrel-aged Mac, Dave, let's go right back to the beginning, mate. Before you had Ostra, go back to where did your passion start, and how did you get on the road of making whiskey? What was your learnings? What was your trainings?
Wow, how far back do I go? I inherited the passion. My grandfather made vodka in Poland, and he was just a bootlegger, just like most of them are. And he started in his shed, and when he passed away, never met him. And so when he passed away, because I was in Australia, I got interested in it, and I started distilling to sort of connect with him and his spirit. So I sort of felt closer through distilling because I knew that was his passion, and that kind of instilled the passion, and that started me on the journey.
Okay.
And what were you distilling on at that point?
It was a glass still. So I knew a glass maker. He blew his own glass, and
Right.
so he was in Melbourne, and he made me up a little glass still. And hang on, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, bud. Cheers.
Cheers, Todd.
Cheers.
So glass still. So what sort of volume were you doing in that? You're talking.
Oh, it was tiny. It was a 1 litre glass still.
Yeah, right.
So it was literally in my shed. It was literally in my shed in Melbourne. And I just started doing it for fun, and that got I just really enjoyed it. I just, it was black magic, right? You put this brown liquid in, and this clear liquid comes out, and I was just hooked from day one. That you could create something so magical, and the more I distilled, the more I realized that you do this or you do that, and different temperatures and different raw materials. All of a sudden, you're getting different flavor profiles, your different cuts, and then it just kind of grew from there. So so I was studying. I was doing my master's back then. I did a master's in entrepreneurship and innovation. So it's like how to run high risk, high growth businesses. And so I did a little business case on spirits in Australia. And back then, it was like 2004 when I looked into it. Yeah, so I was about 24 years old. And that's when I was running the still, the glass still. And so I did a case study on spirits in Australia and realized there wasn't that much. I mean, Lark had started out, obviously. Then there was, Bundy, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was just like looking at it and going, wow, this is awesome. Let's make an Australian spirit. And that's where, kind of led me from there. So I called it a micro distillery back then, but I built you'd call it a craft distillery now, but back then craft wasn't a thing. And so I built the micro distillery in Melbourne in Mount Waverley, and I ran that for about 2 years. And whilst I did that, I enrolled into Harriet Watt University in Edinburgh and studied the masters in brewing and distilling. So I studied that long distance, and every summer I went over to Scotland and did summer school, and got absolutely sloshed. Visited as many distilleries as possible, and learned the art of whiskey. Look, it was fun, and then from there I sort of travelled into the cognac region, and I distilled with this small cognac brand family. And then from there, I went to Poland, and I learned the art of vodka production, and came back to Australia, and just looked at it, and I just thought, there's no way, to create, a good, and selling Australian spirits to the world. I thought, I've got to find a bigger site, and that's how I managed to find the Robinvale site, and so it drew me along into Robinvale.
Well, before we get into Robinvale, I just want to pass a comment. I think it's really cool because, if someone was starting now, they would say, look, I'll go to Scotland, I'll spend some time, I may study, I may go to Cognac, may go to Armagnac, right? But you were doing it back in early 2000, and you've been on the scene for a very long time, but such a low profile. It's people know you, but the general public don't know you. So
yeah.
Tell us just on that. Or maybe you need to tell us after you tell us the Ostra story. But
no, happy to.
It's a different take, and I'm really curious why you've done that, because most other people are going, I'm here, and I put myself in that category, that I'm here. But you were like, no, I'll keep everything low key.
Yeah, look, I run my own race, so I don't see anyone in Australia as a competitor. I see them as friends, and I see then how can I support, how can I help, right? And whoever knocks on my door, I don't close it on them unless they come with a bunch of lawyers. Then it's a different story. But
we don't need lawyers in our space, that's for sure. Carry on.
But I run my own race, and look, I am a perfectionist, so I try and do things as best to my ability, as best as possible. And look, being in Robinvale, I don't know, how many, or the people that are watching, how many have been here at site, but it is a large site, and so when something goes bang, right, it costs a lot of money to repair and replace and fix. I'll give you one example. Boiler breaks down. To replace that boiler is $250,000. And that's a good year or two of profit, right? To fix that. And so you can sort of see 15 years later, right? Like, with all the different things that we've done over time, it just feels like we're going at a snail's pace. And so it's just because we've got such large shoes to fill that it just takes a long time. The other one is we've been, I really want to stay independent for as long as possible. And so we've managed to stay independent to this day. And so my partner and wife and I own the business outright. And it's given us the freedom to innovate and do things that we wanted to do on a commercial scale. And we hope to continue that moving forward. Whether we stay independent or not, that's the big question, because obviously the bigger you get, the more working capital you need, and obviously then that feeds into a larger story. But it's, look, I'm a bit of an introvert, and I like to stay humble, because even though I've studied it and I've made every product you can think of, it doesn't mean I know everything. And so I'm always learning every day, and to truly master, the craft, it's a lifelong obsession, and even now you're always going to conferences, you're always reading books, and look, yeah, sure, 100%, 99 or 95% of that, of what you learn, you already know. But you notice that as you move forward in your career or in your knowledge, there's always that 1 or 2% knowledge that you pick up, and you go, that's it. I get it. Yeah, that's why that, and you join the dots, and you can only join those dots when you're at that level, because you've worked everything else out, and when you're only at that level, then you kind of realize, okay, and then you get a even clearer view of your industry and how it works.
100%, mate.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, mate.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And as I say to people, and I get myself knotted up when I try to describe it, I know what I know. I know what I know now, and I knew what I knew a year ago, and I know a lot more now than what I knew a year ago. So therefore, a year from now, I'll know a lot more than what I know now. Jesus, I got it out in one go.
I know, but get this, right? The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Cam's on.
And that's certainly nothing to be afraid of either.
Cam, people... that's embarrassing.
It's a nice shade of red there, Dave.
So for those that don't know you, myself included, you've got this huge site. You've been distilling for eons.
And how did you get the site?
You've obviously got huge equipment doing huge volume, I'm assuming. Where does it go? What do you do? Who's drinking it?
Who knows? Look, commercial in confidence, right?
Look, right. So Ostra is primarily you brew for others.
To date, so we've got two arms. We've got a second arm called ADSM, and ADSM is Australian Distilled Spirit Merchants, and that's our contract arm. And under ADSM, we've opened the doors to everyone. So if anyone needs help, anyone needs support, everyone's hit, needs more volume or whatever it might be, then we're here to help. And whether it's recipe development or whether it's product or it's volume or whether it's you just use us to get out of a jam, you're doing an upgrade on your stills and you just you need to keep laying product. We've been used for those reasons. We've helped larger companies, get well known in the Australian market. So our philosophy is that we're here to help. And if you come to us, then we'll keep everything commercial in confidence, and that's been our attitude to date. So we don't jump around and go, hey, yeah, that's our product and that's our product and that's our product on the shelf, etc., etc. So we really respect everyone that we work with, and we do our best to ensure that people can have good product to keep growing their businesses.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Now let's talk about Robinvale, because I remember, Jesus, about 5-6 years ago, you and I were talking about it, and you told me how it all came about. And it's a fascinating story, and it's part of Australian whiskey landscape. And not many people would know the story. So tell us the story.
Look, it is a cool story. I've got to keep my ego in check when I say it, because I get excited because I that entrepreneurial spirit in me just comes out. So I was running the micro distillery in Melbourne. I did the business plan and realized that for me to make a global product, then I needed a larger site. And so, so I jumped in the plane. I went down to Tassie. I saw, visited the Lark Distillery and checked out a few spots around Tassie, and it just didn't feel right for me. Number one, I'm not Tasmanian, and secondly, I wanted to be close to family, which they're based in Melbourne. So I did want to stay in Victoria. So I very much, I was looking for a site to expand. So I was looking for a greenfield site initially, and ran the numbers, and it's a hard slog, especially when you were born without a silver spoon in your mouth, right? Which most of us, haven't, right? And so we've got to do it the hard way. So I very much, I was on a flight. I went to Sydney. I went to the Fine Food and Wine Show, And when I was there, I met Richard Buller. And Richard Buller owned Buller Wines in just north of Swan Hill. And I said to Buller, I said, "Oh, I'm looking for a big still. I need a bigger still. My still's too small." And I had a keg still in Mount Waverley. And so I was like, "I just need a bigger still." And he goes, "Oh, there's a still for sale." And I go, "Where?" And he goes, "There's one in Robinvale. It's up for sale." And I go, "No way. Who has it?" And they go, "Oh, McWilliam Wines has it." And I go, "Who's McWilliam's Wines?" Right. And this is how much I knew about, liquor back in the day, right? And so he drew me a mud map, right? And he goes, "This is how you get there, right? You got to drive through this town and that town, and stop here at this bakery, and you got to try that, etc., etc." And so he drew me a mud map. So I came up and visited Robinvale, and being a young Melburnian, I stopped in every town and had a cafe latte. And it took me like 7 hours to get to Robinvale. And I got here, and it was just an incredible sight. So I was shown around, and I saw the still, and they had a continuous still here, capable of doing about 10 to 15,000 litres of wine per hour as raw material. Yeah, on average, it produced about 1,000 litres of spirit per hour. And I just looked at it and I go, "Hell yeah, that's a still, right?" And I was super excited. I was like a little boy.
Slight jump up from a keg still.
Sorry, what's that, Todd?
There's a slight jump up from a keg still.
Oh, absolutely, right? So you can just see, like, I'm just going, this is mental, right? And so I'm looking at the still and going, how can I put this into Melbourne, right? And I'm just looking at it going, oh, like if I cut it up and we just drag it, and I'm an optimist, right? Glass half full guy, right? All the time. Right. So I very much thought, yep, I've just got to buy it. I'll just make it work. Right. So I'll need a big boiler to run the steam through it. I'll need a big fermenter to feed it. I'll need a big receival tank to receive the spirit from. And I just thought, these are small problems. Right. So let's just jump in and just do it. And so I turned around, I said to him, and mind you, I was, 26 years old at this time. Right. I grew a beard just like Craigie Craft has now. I drove up in a old Mitsubishi Galant Mishri Brown, right? And I had $2 in my pocket, and I very much just thought, how am I going to pull this off? And so I said to him, I said, "I'll take the still, I'll buy it," right? And they looked at me and said, "Look, Dave, no offense, but you need a big boiler to run it, you need a big fermenter to feed it, and you need a big receival tank to receive the alcohol." And I said, these are small issues, right? I know a boiler maker in Melbourne. I know a guy that can make tanks. We'll just make it work, right? So he turned around to me, the director of McWilliams, and said, "Well, it sounds like," he goes, "Son, it sounds like you need to buy this whole site, right?" And I said, "Oh, look, I don't know if I can afford it. How much do you want for it?" And he goes, "Oh, we would like 6 mil." All right. And I go, "Oh, yeah, I don't have that sort of money." And he goes, "No, I didn't think so." And he looked at me, and I was young and disheveled, and I had ripped jeans, and I was driving the, Mitsubishi Galant. And so then he turns around and he goes, "Well, do you have $500,000?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, we'll sell you the land and the buildings, and you can keep the still, and we'll take all the assets out." And I thought, wow, that's a big difference from 6.5, right? So I turned around and said, well, that's, yeah, I'm thinking, well, you could buy a house in Melbourne for $500,000 back then. I mean, today it's what, I don't know, 2 or 3 mil.
At least.
But more. But so I said, hey, I think I can do that. I'm pretty sure a bank would lend me the money, right? So I said, I need to do my due diligence. So off I went, did my due diligence, and 3 months later, we came to an agreement that I would buy the whole site for $1 million, right? Because I needed to keep a whole bunch of equipment to run the still, including the boiler house, and a whole bunch of different assets, so they couldn't rip everything out. So they agreed that that's the price that I buy it for. And so then after that, I went to the bank, and the bank said, I said to the bank, look, it's 6 mil. but I talked them down to 1. Equity.
Come work for us.
The bank laughed at me and threw me out. And they said, "Look, Dave, you got no cash flow, and if they're selling it for $1 million, then it's only worth $1 million." So I went back, and McWilliams kindly said, "Look, we'll give you cash flow." So they gave me contract work to make grape spirit for them for their fortifieds, and they gave me contracts to make some wine for them. And so with that, I was able to move forward with the purchase. So I went back to the bank and showed them, these purchase orders, and they just fell off their chair and just said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, they're an honourable company, and they want to support, and they know what I'm about, and they want to see this, this Ostra brand take off." And so they looked at the numbers and realized, look, it's not bankable, right? Against this. So I went back to them, and at this stage, it was probably took about 6 months of negotiations, right? So it took some time, and they basically said, "Well, Dave, we're sorry about that. That you couldn't have closed the deal. Wish you all the best." And I said, "Hang on, before you go, what if we do vendor terms?" And they said, "Oh, no. We just want a clean sale. We don't want any problems, et cetera, et cetera." And so I said, "Well, I'd like to put an offer to the board." And so that's what I did. I put an offer to the board of directors at McWilliams that I would, buy this under vendor terms, and they would supply me contract work to assist in paying it off. And the board agreed and in favour, and that's how I bought it.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was when you told me a while ago.
So
it's still mate. It's
I
still
worked my ass off for 3 years and paid it off. And look, there are other stories like this in the distilling industry, right? So this isn't just me, but it was cool that we managed to pick up this site, and I got to move in. I mean, it's incredible. Like we've got 8 million liters in tanks on site. It's just it's a minefield. It's just huge. And the fact that we've got a site that made most of Australia's sherry here is just, that history is so rich and so it's amazing. Like, just to be honored to carry on that tradition of sherry, Apera production in Australia is phenomenal. And it wasn't any secret. I did want to make whiskey, and I wanted to make our own Apera, so then we could make our own Apera casks, so then we could make our own fortifieds, and then obviously to make our own whiskey to go into those Apera casks. So everything was very well thought out, and so I've ever since then worked my ass off. And so we produced a lot of grape spirit for the wine industry, all the big houses, and we had a lot of support in that, super tight margins, the bulk industry, and so it was very challenging for those first few years to pay off the site, and B, to make a whole bunch of product and cash, and it was challenging. Like it's very entrepreneurial, but so we slowly from get go we're doing contract distillation as a result, and so we just kept not saying no, because money coming in is money that means we can just keep buying. We can just keep buying equipment, a new boiler or a new this or a new that. So when I moved in, it was interesting because McWilliams did pull out some tanks, and so they used A&G Engineering to pull out those tanks. And A&G Engineering are based in Griffith, New South Wales. Right. And Ron Potter was the owner of A&G Engineering, and he was late 70s at this stage, late 70s, maybe even early 80s. And he met me, and he goes, "Oh, I hear you're a distiller." And I go, "Yes, that's correct." And he goes, "They're very rare in Australia." And I go, "Yeah, I know. There's not many of us around." And he goes, I've got this pot still sitting in my shed. Would you like it? And I go, well, what size is it? And he goes, it's 15,000 liters. And I go, sure, I'll take it. And he goes, it's brand new. And I go, what do you mean it's brand new? It's still wrapped in plastic. And I go, huh? What do you mean it's still wrapped in plastic? Like, it's perplexing, right? So, and I thought he was just lying to me or pulling my, Anyway, he goes, no, it's brand new. He goes, what happened was it was built in 1980, so the year I was born. And Diageo, or back then it was called United Distillers, had it commissioned, right? And they no longer wanted it. I think it was the recession we had to have, and I think the excise rates skyrocketed then, right, which decimated the distilling industry in Australia. And so this pot still, they just said, keep the deposit, keep the still, we don't want it, right? So they left it in Adelaide. And Ron Potter happened to this engineering firm many years later and moved this brand new pot still to his shed in Griffith, right? In literally his shed at the back of his house, right? And it's sat there ever since. And Ron Potter's wish was to ensure that this still was installed and running before he died, right? So he was looking for someone, and he found a company in South America, in Chile, that wanted it, right? And he was putting the engineering drawings together to install it, etc., etc. And but he had a lot of trouble with it because in Chile there's a lot of earthquakes, right? And so he couldn't make it earthquake proof, right? Because it's a hybrid still, it's got a column on top. Right. And so Ron Potter goes, look, Dave, I prefer to sell it to someone in Australia. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. And he goes, okay. But he goes, son, you got to pay for it. And I go, yeah, of course. And I said, I'll give you 10 grand for it. And he looked at me and goes, no, you know what this is worth. And I go, yeah, I do. Right? So it was a bit of a cheeky offer. So he goes, I'll give it to you for 50 grand. And I go, okay. And I said to him, I can't afford to pay for it. Or can I pay you a little bit over time? He goes, yeah, no problems. Right. So I paid it off over about a year and a half. It actually cost about $80,000 back then to install, right? So it cost me more to install it than it did to buy it off him. And when he brought it in, true to his word, it came in, all the coppers wrapped in plastic, brand new, immaculate, right? Wow. And I just looked at it and I go, wow, what a gift. This is just unbelievable. So he installed it. And it was kind of funny because when we put it together, I didn't have enough money to put the the electrodes in for the thermometers, right? But it was just sitting there all shiny. I had to run it, right? So we turned it on. We put some waste spirit in, right? So we commissioned it. We turned it on without having any full control over it. And it was like, it was warming up, and we're standing there watching it, all excited like little school boys. And all of a sudden, it didn't go bang, but to us it was like bang. And then all of a sudden there was a shower of ethanol coming out of the because we didn't realize that it was coming through the column in time. And so I was just bolting to the boiler, turn off the boiler, to cut off the steam, to turn it off. And so that was the first run on that still. It was just a shower of ethanol coming across. So Ron was really happy. He was happy. And he said all he wanted, and he did gift it to me. I mean, I did pay money for it, but genuinely it was a gift from him to me. And he said, all I want in return is a bottle of your vodka. And so I made him a bottle of vodka and sent it up to him, and he said, thank you. And he had a taste and he said, yeah, it's okay. But he, and it was one of the last. No, that's right. It's Aussie. So it was one of the last jobs that Ron Potter did, and he passed away not too long after that. And so we, in honor of him, call the pot still Potter's Pot after Ron Potter.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
that's nice. So there's a bit of a pattern with you, right? You're, as you said, you're very entrepreneurial. That is absolutely evident in that. And I hear you bought a little wee microbrewery in South Australia, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing.
What's that story?
Yeah. So look. So what it is we've got a big still, obviously, and our limitation is our brew house within the business. And so our brew house and the current brew house I built myself. It's a bit of a continuous cook brew house, and we can do about 10,000 liters per hour on it. Yeah, and it doesn't take much to do it. I can show you how it's done. It's pretty simple. So it's a pretty simple setup. But what it means is we didn't have the ability to remove the grain from our wash. So we ferment with grain in and we distill with grain in as a result. And so it very much is, and because it's 10,000 liters an hour, and that's on a good day. It challenges us because when we're going, we sort of need to do more than that. And we want to have the ability to remove the grain from our ferments. And so to remove the grains from our ferment, we really needed a lauter ton. And when I looked at it buying a brew house, I needed something a decent size. So generally what I do within my business is whenever I expand, I always expand bigger than what I need, right? So I future-proof, right? So because I'm a big believer that Australian whiskey will be bigger than Japanese whiskey in our lifetime, right? And for that to occur, we need to be making more product, quality product, obviously. And so to make quality product, we need quality machinery, and we need to be doing everything to the highest caliber. So I was looking for a Steinecker because that's the Rolls Royce of brew houses, and I found a Steinecker in Russia. Right now, in Russia, what's happened is the roads were paved with gold. Right, so there was a big brewing gold rush over there. So what happened is the Russians drink vodka, but slowly they're drinking more and more beer. All right. So all the big brew houses basically in Russia ran in, Saab Miller, etc., etc., and they just went in and built massive brew houses everywhere. Right. And beer was just selling like crazy over there. And it was really, really good money because there was no tax on beer. There was only tax on vodka. Right. And so what happened was in Russia, eventually the beer was just getting bigger and bigger and more popular. And then all of a sudden the Russian government goes, oh, well, that looks lucrative. Let's put a tax on beer. And so they put a tax on beer, their version of excise tax. And then all of a sudden the bubble burst, right? And then all of a sudden there were too many brew houses in Russia. And these brew houses are big, 500, 650 hectoliters, 1,000 hectoliters, et cetera, right? So I found one which was 650 hectoliters, which I thought was a really good size. That'll keep up with our current stills, and it'll give us capacity then to put in more pot stills to then build out the site and capabilities and capacities, et cetera. So we got talking. We were showing all the engineering drawing, everything, and it was super exciting. And then COVID hit, and then it was like, we can't get our engineers over there. No one can fly over there and have a look. And we had a deadline to get that brew house out, or get our offer accepted and get the brew house out, right? Now, I couldn't afford to buy a brand new one, and so I only had a small amount of money, and this was really cheap, and it was it wasn't actually, it was probably just as expensive to move it than what I was buying it for. So I basically, that deal fell over because COVID hit. And so then we kind of went back to square one, and then all of a sudden I find out on the shout and that the Lion West End brew house is up for sale, and it was a 500 hect brew house, so it was in a similar range that we were looking at. And so I couldn't afford to buy it. I just, I'm an entrepreneur, and we're just sort of putting things together as best as we can and just moving forward as best as we can. And so I approached them and gave them a really ridiculous offer, and they kind of laughed at me and said, "Oh, look, it's too low, and sorry." we don't accept it. And then I sort of said, well, look, I actually don't have that much money, so I'd like to buy it, as a swapsy, right? We'll supply you with some spirit, and then we can, we'll take the brew house. They kind of laughed at that and kind of threw me out the room, so to speak. And so so we basically kind of lost the deal. And I said to them before we sort of left, I said, look, when you change your mind, not if, I said when you change your mind, which was a bit egoic, right? But I said, when you change your mind, I'm here and I'm waiting, and just give me a call, right? We can work through it. And so about 3 months, a few months went past. I can't remember exactly how many months, but a few months went past, and they called me back and they said, look, Dave, we don't have any offers for it. You're the only one that really, really wants it. Please let us know how you make whiskey. Promise us that you won't make beer with this, and we'll sell it to you under your conditions. And so that's how I acquired it. So
Wow.
it was a steal. It was really, really good. The only problem I had was that I had to move it before Easter because they were demolishing the building in Adelaide. And so the cost was astronomical. And it was, I basically, I couldn't afford to do it. That's the reality. So I begged everyone I knew to help, and pulled as many favors as I could, which I'm still paying today. That's
a lot of mates' trucks to carry do that sort of a move. I mean, it's fine calling in a favor to help move a couch. But
that's a lot of Kingswood station wagons.
Yeah. What sort of favors are you calling in? And who are your mates that have got that many utes?
No, I wish it was that easy. No, we had to hire the best company in Australia to pull it out. So the guys that installed it, we hired the same company to pull it out, because we knew that then we had to cut up that lauter ton in half to get it onto the highway to bring it up to Robinvale. And so the cost was astronomical, the engineering costs. So we ended up paying a firm to do it all professionally. But I had to pull in favors to get the cash in. It's indebted me quite a lot. And so it's definitely been challenging, to say the least, to make it work. But it was a big push. And look, I really believe in the vision of Australian whiskey and Australian spirits. And I really believe that we need to have someone at the forefront pushing the limits and breaking glass ceilings, right? Mm-hmm. Someone needs to be smashing it, and someone needs to be confident that Australian spirits will stand on an international footing, right? And that we need to create, the volume now to feed those future bottlings in the future, right? And that's what we're here for, right? I mean, this show's, shooting the shit. It's about craft guys talking to other craft guys, right? But in 10 years' time, they won't be craft guys. They'll be commercial sites doing commercial volumes, because our industry would have matured, right? And that will only succeed is if we've got the volume to sell globally, right? So we can compete with bourbon and Scotch and Irish and Japanese, et cetera, right? Yep. And so as an industry, we need to make sure we stay together, and we have to make sure that we know the objective and the goal that we need to achieve as an industry, and where we need to be. And so my role in that is to ensure that we've got the capability of making volume, but so that we've got the casks being laid now, so then we can, in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, have that mass, that volume to put a bottle of Australian whiskey in front of every single punter in every single bar in every single country, right? And that's a big call. That's a big thing to accomplish, right?
That's a big ask. And how many people do you have helping you to do that?
At this site? So we've got Yeah, we've got 12 full-time employees at the moment. Yeah, so we've just
That's including the cleaner.
Sorry, Dave.
And we've got a few consultants.
Yeah.
Look, for a long time, I ran the site by myself, and I burnt out. I ran the site, and I was distilling. At one stage, I had a. So in 2011, I'll give you a story. In 2011, there was botrytis and mold on all the grapes. It was a wet season, right? And basically, all the wineries were rejecting grape after grape after grape, right? And they had nowhere to dump this grape, so they came to us, the distillery, and we crushed. I think it was like 11 or 12,000 ton of fruit that year. I would wake up at 4 a.m, crush till midnight, and we did that solidly for about 4 months. Right, I think we made about 15 million liters of wine that year, or something like that. It was ridiculous, right? Now, you remember how many tanks I have on site?
How many?
8 million. So you try and fit 15 million liters of wine into 8 million liters. It doesn't work, right? So I ended up distilling the continuous still 24 hours a day for month after month, right? Just distilling, and it was, we didn't have, it was just skeleton staff because we had no money, and I was literally putting my alarm on, going to bed, setting my alarm for an hour later, waking up, checking the still, going to sleep, waking up an hour later with my alarm. And I did that for months and months and months, right? It totally burnt out. Like, it was a schmozzle, right? And I was young. I thought I was invincible, really. Right? So I burnt out. I totally burnt out. So now I'm trying to build a larger team around us. And so there's 12 of us at the moment. So we've got now 2 distillers, 2 brewers, bottling crew. We do all our bottling on site, and a couple of girls in the office.
So let's talk about your vision on blended Australian whiskey. I remember 5 years ago talking about this, and back then it was a very sound proposition, what you were talking about. So yeah, run through your vision on Australian blended whiskey, because it is an evolution in Australia, and there's a lot more single malt distilleries now, not just Tasmania. The mainlanders. Yeah, we got a few now, and anyway, so yeah, and a time is coming where, as you said, on the global stage, we are becoming a powerhouse, and people are going to want volume. So yeah, talk us about your vision on blended whiskey specifically.
So everyone knows that 8 to 9 bottles of whiskey sold out of 10 is a blended whiskey, right? And 2 to 3. Yeah, the numbers bounce around a little bit. Is single malt, and so blended whiskey works because it's blended. So the drinkability is a lot higher, right? And because the drinkability is a lot higher, then you're more likely to polish off a bottle of blended whiskey over, playing poker with your mates. And you'll polish off that bottle in one sitting, as opposed to possibly a single malt where you savor, taste, enjoy, become philosophical around it. Yeah. Whereas a blended whiskey, you're more likely to enjoy and consume at a larger and faster rate. And the drinkability is easier, so you don't have such bold, strong flavors, and it's balanced, it's finessed, it's designed to have that high drinkability. And so, as a result, globally, blended whiskies outsell single malts, right? And so it's the majority of the whiskies. And so naturally, you have to understand that the market wants blended whiskies. And I believe that Australia can make really, really good blended whiskies, right? We don't have any glass ceilings over us, so we can produce whatever we want, whatever grain, in whatever fashion we want to, and we can really, really innovate in this space. right? And I really believe that over the next few years, we're going to have amazing blended whiskies that will compete with the global brands. And so those blended whiskies obviously need support, right? And so we want to make sure that we're creating the bases for those blended whiskies. So then that way, we can create an industry that has B2B trading, right? Business to business. And I really want to see that happening in the Australian whiskey industry, because we're going into a recession at the moment, right? And that recession is very much going to hurt a lot of distillers. I'm already seeing from my side that people are moving from the $80 bottle of gin to the $40 bottle of gin. And we're seeing our sales move in that direction. And that's natural, because when the interest rates go up and you're belt tightening, one of the first things you do is stop going out and stop drinking as well, right? And you drink the same amount, you just drink different, right? And so industries have cycles, and we're going to go into a tough cycle as an industry. And if you look at the Scottish industry versus the Japanese industry, in Japan there's two major powerhouses, right? Two big distillers. Whereas in Scotland, you've got 100 or so, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why those 100 or so survived through the whiskey dark ages in the 80s and through into the 90s is because they all did B2B trading. And it was the blended whiskies that they traded into that gave them the cash flow to survive as a business. And so it's those blended whiskies that everyone was trading into that you would go, okay, I'm going to make this blended whiskey, right? I'm an independent bottler or whatever I am, and I want a barrel of this from this distillery, and I want a barrel of that. And if we can start going down that path and creating blended whiskies and start a B2B into trading market, then all of a sudden we're going to be more resilient as an industry, because you're no longer just reliant on that one brand, on that one product and that one offering. All right. All of a sudden if something goes bang and your boiler breaks down or this or that, you've now got the ability to move some of your stock and place it and sell it and get money for it. And because we're all businesses, right? I mean, we're all, everyone wants to be a traditionalist and do everything perfect and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, we're all running businesses, and we need to make sure that every distillery survives, and this is one way of doing it. And I'm not saying it's the only way, but it'll be nice to see that, and it will give us the innovation and also the product to blend. If we take some of Crafty's product and then we take some of other distilleries' product, it would create some amazing blends, right? Stuff that we could just like really be excited about, and really just kind of change the way and flavor profiles that would come out of that. Because some distilleries make really good spicy products, others make more oily, fatty kind of whiskeys. Other distilleries have stills that make this style or that style. And so when you've got this big spice rack of all these different barrels around Australia wide, you get some whiskeys that are over oaked, some of which are too thin, right? And so then you can start marrying them all up, and then all of a sudden you've got the ability to make some really innovative products. And I think that's where the market's going to move eventually.
I like the term spice rack. Yeah. Spice rack really does sum it up. And 5 years ago, I said, sign me up for this, because it just makes so much sense. It's an evolution. And as you said, there's so much of diversity of whiskey spirit out there. Distilleries are all ploughing their own, well, not all of them, but some are ploughing their own path. So when you treat those as ingredients, holy crap, it's a powerhouse.
So how do you see, do you see yourself or Ostra being the connector, the conduit to facilitate that sort of trading of spirit that is over oaked or too light or whatever it may be,
thin or whatever?
Yeah. Do you see yourself becoming the hub for all of that product being funneled and then distributed, or how do you see that side of things working?
I don't want to control the market, right? So I want to make sure the market is got the freedom to innovate, and everyone's got their own voice and everyone's got access to that market. At the moment, if you want to sell your product, where do you sell it, right? A lot of people, are small and they're producing their product, and what they're doing is they're taking that product and they can't get into Dan Murphy's or they can't get into Coles, right? And so they got their local IGA or got their local independent, they got their local bars, etc. But they're struggling to go further than that, right? And they don't have the volume to fulfill, larger orders, etc., etc. But they don't have the ability to go to a larger market base, right? Really exciting products, all that sort of thing. And so I want to make sure that everyone still has that opportunity, whether you're a small player or a large player, to be able to supply into the marketplace. And that's a very holistic way of thinking. And so how do we do that? That's the question.
Well, one comment I'd like to make is you're already starting to see it happening at a very small scale with single malt whiskey distilleries collaborating with each other and pulling blends together. I mean, I can name two off the top of my head, and that's Fleurieu Distillery and Blackgate Distillery, and what they've done with Country and Coast, and self-plug.
I just happen to have a bottle right here.
Yeah. Which is that's a collaboration with Marty Pye from Riverbourne and Craftworks, right?
Yep.
And the basis behind it is we're making different products. And at the Rattler, there's another one, which is Backwards, Tim Boone, and Fleurieu. So it's already starting to happen, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah. And I think that's just going to get bigger and bigger, right? And I think people are going to be more open to being collaborative as time goes on. And the accolades, you don't have to be up there, winning the gold medal all to yourself. I think it'd be exciting to see 3 distillers up there, sharing the one medal. And I think as an industry we're going to do that. I just don't know when that's going to happen at that.
Matt Bailey's asked a good question.
What capacity are you running now in 2023?
We're not laying that much this year. So we took a big hit in capital because of the Lion Nathan. So we haven't actually laid down a lot. The capacity on our still is, so we're running the still when we do run at about 8,000 to 10,000 litres an hour of wash. So producing, about 1,000 odd litres of spirit per hour. And so we run it like that. And we usually just do 1 fermenter per day. And 1 fermenter for us is about, 70 to 80,000 litres.
That's still a fuckload of spirit.
It doesn't matter how you cut it.
No, that's astronomical numbers.
Yeah. And that's what I'm really excited about. And you probably tell I'm quite excited tonight, is you are a sleeping giant, right? And there's people in the industry that know about you, right? And you got high praise, mate. Everyone's just going, it's great to see you. It's great to see this happening, etc., etc. But
I'm not a threat.
You're not known out there.
No,
I'm
not known. Look, we're very humble and we're very quiet. And I have to really want to say this because we're not a threat, right? Because a lot of people think that we're just going to go out and smash it and we're going to just, and drop the price in the marketplace, etc., etc. And that's not what we're about. The reason why I'm pushing to be a larger producer, there's a couple of reasons. So the first one is we need someone to make the volume so that we can have casks down so that we can supply the global stage, right?
Yeah.
And 100%, you have to understand that whatever Australia makes in total, including myself at full capacity, will not be enough to fulfill the hunger and the thirst that the world will have for Australian spirits. You'll watch in 5 years or 8 years time, everyone will be kicking themselves going, damn, I should have put down twice as much whiskey that we have now. Right, we're just not going to have enough. And
you're taking notes, Crafty, by the way.
I was just going to say, we could be the next Japanese for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Well, I hope not. I hope our industry collaborates a lot more, and I hope that we as a community of distillers is we're going to stick together and support each other. So my issue is and I've had this issue my whole life, is I never had a silver spoon in my mouth, right? So even though we got a large capacity, it takes a lot to run it. Like we go through a load of gas a week, right, at full capacity, and our gas tank's 30,000 liters.
Wow.
It's expensive to do, right? Now, I've done my best, absolutely, right, and it's been tough, right? So when something goes bang in such a large factory like your distillery, it takes a lot of capital to fix that. When we upgraded the wash column on my continuous still, that ended up costing me $1.25 million.
Can I just put this into perspective for some people out there? So this week, the hose fitting on my tap came off. It caused me a lot of stress, right? A lot of stress during sparge. Okay, right? That's what I'm dealing with. Okay, so you remember those days, Dave, when you had your
totally. Look, I've been there. And I've been
30,000 litre gas tank compared to our whatever the heck it is.
Oh no, okay, I'm going to tell the story.
The two of us can't manhandle a 30,000 litre gas tank on the back of the ute.
So you'll love this story, Dave. Just quickly. So it's 9 o'clock at night. No, 8 o'clock at night, right? And I got 2 gas cylinders, 45-litre gas cylinders, right? And the gas goes down. I go, oh, that's all right. I got my backup tank. Fuck, my backup 45's empty. Jesus. So it's freezing. It's 4 degrees.
Yep.
And I'm going, fuck. So I got my 45-litre gas tank on my trolley. I got to wheel it up half a kilometre up the road to the servo to get a refill and come back down. That's my world.
I totally hear it. I've been through it. Everyone's been through it, right? And this is what makes us all entrepreneurs, right? And it's that daily battle to keep the lights on and keep the still running and do everything you can to keep going, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice to get accolades and everything, but end of the day, the businesses, and we got to fund them, and and it can be tough, absolutely. So I wanted. What's
Sorry,
that?
go on. Oh,
no, go.
I'm looking at the barrels behind you there that are 200-litre barrels.
Yep.
I think they're 200 liters, aren't they?
I think we're 225.
Yeah. You're doing how many thousand liters an hour? 1,000 liters an hour.
Call it 1,000 liters an hour. Yeah, Spirit.
Spirit.
By how many days? How many hours a day are you running that still? Or those still?
Well, yeah, call it 8 to 10 plus warm up and shut down.
You're going to need a bigger barrel.
I know, right? This is the ongoing problem.
How many fucking barrels do you go through a day?
So put it in this perspective, right? So if we install the West End brew house, right, that's a 500 hec brew house, right? So 500 hec means 50,000 liters. That's per brew. That's not including sparging. Including sparging, that's 65,000 liters per hour.
Per hour.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it'll take, so turnaround's probably 2 hours per go,
Turn the
right?
max.
so it works. No, I'll give you the numbers. It works out to be about 400 casks a day of single malt whiskey.
It is 400. You told me the other week, and I went,
yeah.
No, I must have misheard that.
It's
We
totally.
do have a few questions.
It's totally
from the crowd.
bonkers.
Yeah,
What's that, Todd?
We have a few questions from the crowd when you guys are ready.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, that is just that's.
Hang on. Well, let's just do this
So
question.
since we're on wood, we'll go with Matt's one first.
Hi, Matt.
What
challenges
do you have?
Yeah, good question.
If you need 400 barrels a day.
Yeah. So Matt, I'm not making 400 barrels a day at the moment, right? So we're nowhere near that. Actually, we're not producing a whole bunch because we're cash poor at the moment and asset rich, right? And so we're very much in a position where we want to get there, and we will get there. But it means that if we did get there, then that's a lot of casks, right? And then you've got a problem because all of a sudden you've got to fight with others to get the supply casks. And that's a huge problem. So we've just recently put on a head cooper. He's starting in July, and he's had 20 years experience, and he's joining us in July onwards to assist us with our barrel program moving forward.
How many barrels a day do you reckon how many barrels an hour will he produce?
Oh, yeah, there's no way. Like a good cooper, probably 20 a day, right? Or maybe 40, right?
Youngie,
yeah.
what's the benchmark, Youngie? We know he's watching.
Yeah.
What's the benchmark that they should be aiming for to get a good quality barrel out the door?
No, hang on, but you got to take out a good quality breakfast time. You got to take out morning tea. You got to have a decent lunch.
Second breakfast.
Just time out. Just got to have time out, reduce the stress levels, and then
yak
an afternoon break. So
there's got to be yak time.
By the way, Youngie, I'm joking. You know. Don't cut off my barrels, mate.
While we wait for Youngie to slap us,
that's probably pretty close.
One barrel
at 2.2.
Oh, that would be to fill though, not to build a barrel.
Yeah, you couldn't build a barrel.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. No. I thought you guys were asking to build a barrel, but to fill a barrel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, I wonder if.
Well, actually, if we go, oak planting Australia with a survival long-term strategy for these sort of goals. I mean.
Thank
you. There's another question from earlier on that we sort of missed.
We do.
We got a lot of questions.
We've
got more questions than we've ever had.
Absolutely. So, Rian, why would a blended product be cheaper?
Good question. Doesn't necessarily have
question.
To be.
No.
Blended
it doesn't need to be.
Quality.
No.
So generally speaking, with malt whiskey is made from malted barley, and malted barley costs 3 to 4 times more than just normal grain. And as a result, because of the cost of that malt, means that the malted malt whiskey will be a lot more expensive. And so by making grain whiskey, it has your raw material is a lot cheaper. And as a result, then that means that your whiskey's cheaper, which means that when you blend it and you say you blend 20% malt with 80% grain whiskey, you'll get a really good product, but it means that you can sell it at a lower price point. And that's how that market works.
Right.
Back
to Matt Bailey and the barrels. I reckon don't build it 2 to 3 minutes per barrel.
Wow, that's amazing, Matt.
How many fingers do they have?
That's freaking amazing. That's amazing.
Incredible. Okay, so nice little comment there. Get Todd mashing in my 100-litre.
John Carberry would say the same thing from Murray River Cooperage, actually, because remember he told us the story. Those guys, they basically work on commission, right? And they've got quotas. They got to just get them out the door. It's no mucking around. So
they're not there to fornicate with arachnids.
They're not there to fornicate with arachnids. That's for sure.
They go, Lee.
Lee, that would be embarrassing.
No, mate, you're there. We'll make it happen.
Lee's on a bigger scale.
No, Lee's on the technical standards committee. I'm on the technical standards committee. I'm going to put it forward. I'm on the New South Wales committee. Dave, you're there, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
your vision is what other
introvert.
People
remember, introvert.
Yeah. Well, you're doing well, mate. You're holding it together. I'm impressed.
Picture everybody naked. That's what you need to do.
This is Graham Norton with more alcohol.
Oh, Dan.
Another question coming in. How many different whiskies have you got at the moment?
I think we've got about a dozen.
Yeah, right.
So the one I'm drinking at the moment is chocolate malt.
Mhm.
So it's choc whiskey. And then yeah, we've made quite a few different whiskies that we've got available, and they will be. I was hoping to have the website ready today. I was hoping to launch Ostra whiskey today, but I didn't get the website built in time, so I'm hoping that's going to be tomorrow or on Saturday.
You should have given me a call. I could have helped you there.
Oh, dude, I know, but we're doing it in house, you know.
We'll
But
talk
what
tomorrow.
it means
We'll talk
is,
tomorrow.
My people will talk to your people.
is so everything I release this year will be a founder's cask or a founder's bottling, and there isn't that much available, and so it'll only be a founder's this year. So
Right.
No, hold on.
I sort of see
Put it in perspective.
Yeah. What is your definition
So,
of
okay.
not
Not
much?
Yeah.
That's entirely different.
I know what my
Well,
definition of
definition
not
of not
much
much.
is. I'm sure it's a lot less.
Yeah, look, I'd have to come back to you on the exact number, but it would be at least 30 or 40,000 bottles.
Oh. Can we have a not much release of 30 or 40,000 bottles? Crafty?
No, I know it sounds more,
more
but
than
we're
you've
going to
ever made,
release it globally, and you have to understand that when we are doing larger volumes, then this will be seen as, you know, Penfold's first bottlings, right? If you've got the first vintage of Penfolds, it's worth $1 million. And so the collectors out there would want to grab these bottles and and sit on them, because, you know, we want to create a global brand here, and we want to be, you know, in a position where we're helping all distillers to move into the international market, whether it's blends, whether it's, you know, contract, or whether it's, you know, our brand Ostra, or whatever it might mean. Secondly, I've got to sell these because, you know, we've got to fund the next stage, and it's to fund the next stage of our business. Yeah, we need all the help we can get, basically. And we hope that the Australian community will support us, and not only the Australian community, but the global community. So, look, the biggest issue I've faced today is I want to lay down as many casks every single day. But the thing that's stopping me is capital, right? And it's the biggest problem that we all have. If we had more money, we would all be putting down more casks, right? And so this is a fundamental issue, not just in Australia, but globally for all distillers, right? Whiskey distillers. So say, for example, I've got a customer, and that customer wants $1 million worth of whiskey per month, right? Which is a lot, right? Now, let's say our whiskey is 5 years old, right? So that means I have to lay down $1 million worth of whiskey every month for 60 months, right? So that's $60 million worth of whiskey. I don't have $60 million, right? And so it's a fundamental issue to be able to fund future growth, right? And so let's say you put in 10% or 20% growth rate on top of that. So then all of a sudden, it's no longer $60 million worth of whiskey that you have to fund. It's $100 million worth of whiskey, right? Now, let's say you got 10 of those customers, right? The numbers just they just blow out of proportion,
it's
right?
exponential, yeah.
Exactly, right? So how do you go about funding it? How do we as an industry go about funding it, right? You know, and some distillers, you know, have worked that out, and those distillers are doing quite well. You know, you get an equity play from, you know, a major distilling global beverage company, or you know, use private equity, or, you know, et cetera. So I've thought about this long and hard, and I've sort of been debating this internally for years and years. And a few years ago, we came up with a solution. And that solution is and there's been different variances of this around, and that is to build a whiskey exchange. And so that's exactly what we're doing at the moment. And I was hoping to launch the whiskey exchange tonight, but lo and behold, you know, I need to sell some more bottles to fund, you know, it. So if anyone out there is listening, please buy a bottle to help yourself, right? And I'll tell you why.
We've got Victor Noon saying he'll take a dozen. Straight off the bat.
And we're out of the starting blocks. Let's go, people.
We can do more than that.
Yeah. Right. So, now peoples, get comfortable. Buckle up. We're about to go for a very different ride. Dave, continue, mate.
Yeah, so this is why we came here tonight. It wasn't so much to hear my story, and I'm sure everyone's enjoyed my story, but it's the next chapter, and the next chapter is more important for us all. And that next chapter of the whiskey industry, not just locally but globally, right? And how can we change the industry forever? So what we've done is we're building a whiskey exchange. The whiskey exchange is called WX 500. So WX stands for Whiskey Exchange, and 500 because 500, normally when you put a barrel down, it's no more than 500 liters, right? Generally speaking. So WX500.com or .io, thanks for putting that up there. I was hoping to launch it tonight, but it looks like it's going to be launched at the end of the month. I am the guinea pig, right? So on this exchange, there'll be one distiller, and that's me, one distillery, right? And the way it works is say, for example, you want to lay down a whole bunch of casks, but you don't have the funds to do it. So traditionally, you got to get debt or equity to fund your business, right? So from a distiller's perspective, you can now fund your business ongoing, right? So what you do is you make a barrel of whiskey or a cask of whiskey, just like behind me. And then once it's produced and you got a survey and it's real and it exists, right? And, then you can sell that barrel or cask of whiskey on the exchange, right? And so then you sell that cask on the exchange, and then someone will come in and buy that cask or that whiskey, right? And they will buy that and hold that as an asset. And then when they hold that as an asset, they then will get a return on that whiskey. So obviously you don't sell it at retail price, you'll sell it at a discount, right? But what it means, you as a distiller, is that you now have the ability to take this barrel, sell it the same day or the next day, and then you've got the funds tomorrow to lay down 2 barrels, right? Because you've created some profit because of your brand, right? Now, a lot of people don't have $10 or $20,000 to buy a cask. So what we're doing is we're breaking the cask up into bottles, right? So each cask holds, call it 200 or 300 bottles of whiskey, right? And so what we do is we break it up into pieces, and because they're not bottles yet, they're still liquid in a cask. So we don't want to call it a bottle of whiskey because then that's not correct. So we call it a stave. Now, one stave, how many staves does a barrel have, right? Now, so a stave represents an imaginary bottle of 700 ml at bottle strength, whatever you deem bottle strength to be, whether it's 40%, 42, 48, or barrel strength. And then that stave represents that that bottle. So it hasn't matured yet. It's sitting in cask. It's like it's in bond, right? And so when that cask matures, which it might be 2 years, or might be 5 years, or might be 10 years, the distiller will decide what that age is, right? And as a result, he will decide what the price is of their product, right? So say, for example, I've got an $800 bottle of whiskey, right? And it matures in 5 years' time, right? Let's change it. Let's call it a $4,000 bottle of whiskey, right? Now, how many of you guys have drunk a $4,000 bottle of whiskey?
Oh, last night.
Exactly.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
It's rare.
Not
but not every night.
We had about that much of it.
Yeah.
Totally, right? And it was probably one of the best whiskeys you had.
gram.
70.
Yeah,
$70 gram.
$70 gram, yeah.
32-year-old Glendronach. Carry on.
Now, most people can't afford to do that, right? And most people would like to try that. Yeah. And this is the thing, right? So what we're doing is we're going to be able to give everyone the opportunity to own a $4,000 bottle of whiskey. Right. So you as a consumer can go to, WX500, right, and you can buy a stave today, right, which is a new barrel of new make spirit. It will have a contract on it, and that contract will say that bottle matures in 10 years time, or 20 years time, or 15 years time, and that bottle then will have a retail value of $4,000, right? But if you bring it back to today's value, then you can buy that as a stave for $100, right? Because it's new make, right? And so what you're doing is you've got now people buying staves of whiskey out of your barrel and funding, the distillery today and supporting that distillery and going on the journey with you, right? And then you can enjoy a really expensive bottle of whiskey and not having to pay, or raise your superannuation fund to enjoy it. It's no longer just for rich people, right? So
how do you take into account the angel's share with those barrels?
Yep. Yeah. So good question. So look at these casks behind me. So they're 200-liter casks. So we only put 150 liters up for sale.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So only 75%. And then if you age it for a longer period of time, then you'll only put up 100 liters up for sale. Or if it's a 20-year-old whiskey, you might need 4 barrels and there's 20 liters in each, right? Which means that's why you've got a higher price point at $4,000 a bottle, right?
Gotcha.
So what it does is it gives us the tool, the distillers, and it gives us the ability to create really exciting long-term projects that we can fund today. And it gives the consumer the ability to fund us, but also give them the ability to taste this really amazing whiskey at a sensible price.
So let me break this down, because I had to wrestle with this when you told me and get my head around it. And what I've come to is you're basically creating a stock market on
exactly
trading as whiskey. And
yes,
anybody can trade on this stock market. Anyone
yes.
can put product on, and anybody can sell and buy as they see fit.
That's correct. So say, for example, your house burns down and you go, oh, bugger, my house has burnt down. I need to build a new house. But I've got all this whiskey that I bought, right, on WX500, right? So then you can instantly sell your position on WX500. Or you could just buy some whiskey and play the market. And so the market will go up, right? And then it'll go down and it'll go up and down. And so then you can trade from a $50 bottle of whiskey up to a $4,000 bottle of whiskey.
So it's a free market. It's not a regulated market. It's a free
That's correct.
market economy share market.
That's correct. So true. So how do you value your barrel of whiskey at the moment, right? You got to get a valuer in, and that valuer will look at, market rates, et cetera, et cetera. But no one can really truly value that product. So you look at some distilleries and they go, oh, my product's worth this much because we're selling it at retail price for this much, right? But is it truly worth that much? Well, the test is to put it onto a free market and see what the market decides what it's worth.
Okay, so if we take an example, and I'm just throwing a name out there because it just comes to mind straight away, Sutherland's Cove, right?
Yep.
So Sutherland's Cove have a parcel of barrels, and they go, all right, we're not going to sell this as we normally would. We're actually going to put it on the WX500 and let it rip. And however it goes is however it goes. That's a fascinating concept. It's a fascinating concept.
So it might mean that bottling from Sutherland's Cove is worth substantially more. Maybe they're undervaluing themselves, and maybe those bottlings are going to be worth a lot more. Or maybe the buyer wants to buy that bottling because, it was bottled on their son's birthday, right? And they want it on their 21st birthday, right? And they want to gift them, or they got a wedding coming up in 4 years' time, right? Or whatever it might be. And they go, okay, well, we're going to buy XYZ, right? So we can have some really, really good bottles at that wedding. There's a myriad different reasons why you can do it. But what it does is it turns the liquid assets into a tradable capital asset, right? And so it gives everyone the opportunity to take that asset and turn it into cash whenever you like. Now, you as a distiller don't have to sell that asset, right? This barrel here, you could just sell, 2 staves or 10 staves out of that cask and hold the rest to yourself, right? And then you can just slowly release them, right? And you can just keep them and just sell them in a retail level, right? Or you can just go in and buy, a whole bunch of casks from another distiller and use that to blend your own product.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna be devil's advocate. So we all know about the $20 million plus Nant alleged fraudulent action. I'll use the word alleged. Hopefully soon prosecutable, but that's another story. So there's a lot of fear out there on barrel investments and anything like that, right? So someone comes along and goes, no, this just sounds like a Ponzi scheme. This just sounds like it's dodgy as fuck. And I'm not saying it is. I'm being devil's advocate, right?
Yeah, totally.
So what sort of
consumer protection?
Yeah, what sort of consumer protection? What sort of independent surveillance analysis that is oversight? What sort of oversight is there on this?
So at the moment, I'm the guinea pig, right? So we're developing this. So we're building the plane as we're flying it, right? And so we're developing this as we're going. In my vision, every distillery will need to be audited by a third-party auditor. All their casks will need to be audited to prove that they're there. All that record keeping has to be transparent, right? So all the surveys, and with the first ones that we're doing, we're basically building a database, and on that database, we're capturing all the information of that bottle. So, say for example, where did the grain come from? Which farm? Who was the brewer? Who was the maltster? Which malting facility did it go through? Right? Where was it brewed? And what the specs were on that brew? What percentage of alcohol? What who brewed it? Was it Tom, Dick, or Harry? Right? Then who was the distiller? Was it me? Was it Todd? Was it Craig? Was it Luke? And then what were the cuts? What all that metadata, right, can all be captured, right? And then what cask it went into, what date it was filled, what percentage of alcohol, barrel strength it was. All that data can now be captured, and that is included in the survey, right? And then we take all that data and we can then link it to every single cask and every single stave. And then once the stave matures, it then gets transferred into every single bottle, right? And so then we know that the excise tax has been paid, right? We know when, we know all the details of that bottling and that cask, and we know everything about that whiskey. Now, take for example now, right? You've got a whole bunch of bottles behind you there, Luke, right? And if you pick one bottle, right, how much information can you gather about that cask and where it came from, right?
Not a lot. The label and maybe the website.
First one,
yeah,
because
totally.
It's and I could reach it without hurting myself. One of my favorite.
King Lake, yep.
King Lake,
yep.
Beautiful. I haven't tried this one yet, actually.
Oh, it's great. Not now.
Not right now, no, because
we've got too much.
Yeah. Look, I know that it was filled at 63.5 and reduced to bottle strength using King Lake spring water. It's French oak, 225 litre, Portuguese 20. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of information.
I've actually never read the bottle.
Yeah, that's not a good example.
Let me find one of your bottles.
No, piss off. Just on that though, what you're saying there aligns beautifully with what's happening with whiskey consumers. They want
transparency.
Information. They want transparency. They want to know. They want to know the duck's bum.
There's your benchmark.
There's your benchmark. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly. And that's exactly where the industry is going. It's all about transparency, right? And a lot of the issues that the industry may see can be resolved through transparency. So if we can create a system right? If we can create a system that what about blockchain? Well, now that you've asked, so the reason why it's wx500.io is because all this data is being recorded on the blockchain, right? So what we're doing is we're recording every single stave and every single cask and every bottle on the blockchain. And so that blockchain then represents each stave or bottle. And as it gets traded, it then gets traded and all that data stays with that stave, right? And it can be traded 1,000,000 times or 1,000 times or just the once, right? And so then we can keep track of all that information and wherever it ends up or wherever it goes. And so then all of a sudden you've got a complete transparency around your stable bottle, and it's all on a public ledger. You can't cheat the system. And so your devil's advocate about the nans, right? You can't escape it, because you can't cheat all that information. It is going to be there and it's going to be in the public domain. And so it then forces transparency in the industry to a whole nother level. And so when you've got bottlings and people are pushing, to, solve the issue of fake whiskies and all that sort of thing, then all of a sudden you've got that transparency behind each bottle.
I'd like to comment on Matt's comment there. Very good comment, very relevant for sure. But I also think we're entering different times. And obviously brand authenticity is number one, but a level of transparency is going to become even more of a driving factor for consumers. Purely just from one angle is food security, right? They want to know, what they're eating, what they're drinking, where it's coming from, and it's a global demand for this sort of knowledge. So what may have been in the past is not necessarily what's happening in the future.
No, but Matt's right. It's one part of the story, right?
It's only one part of the story, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And each brand
and there is
carries
still a lot
story.
of brand loyalty out there.
Yeah, it's brand loyalty, of course.
Absolutely.
And certainly, using the example before of Sullivan's Cove, put up a barrel and 100 staves into the market, by brand virtue alone, they're going to be able to command a higher price for those staves than XYZ distillery, who only produce 2 barrels a year. There's going to be, of course, differences, and I think people will need to obviously expect you're not going to be able to put your barrel up there for what you wish for. It will be market driven and based on that demand.
Yeah, but the thing that excites me about this is right now, if you're a Johnny come lately distillery and you make a cracking product and you can't get it out there, and you're desperately trying to get it into a Dan's, or you're desperately trying to get it into a BWS or whatever, and you may succeed and it'll sit on the shelf because people don't know who you are outside your local area or outside your social media sphere. So it'll sit there and you'll get dumped. Whereas on the on your whiskey exchange, it's
everyone's got access to the market.
Everyone is on a level platform, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No,
and the genius behind it is it gives everyone access to that market, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, if you've got a stronger brand, then you will sell more, right? But if you're a smaller brand, then all of a sudden you've got the opportunity to sell your cask as you make them, to give you the money to then put into branding, right? To grow your tribe, to grow your brand, right? To give you a better crack at the industry, right? And because all these small craft distillers, they're highly innovative, right? They're really and if they had more money, then their brands would be bigger, right? And this is like, most of us have a finance problem, and this is a finance solution for distillers, right? Because it gives you the ability to sell. You don't have to wait 5 years to sell your bottles. You can now sell them now, right? Get the money now and then build your brand and build more stock and build out your distillery.
So how I'm a new distiller. I have zero brand presence. I'm as greenfields as they come, and I want to put my barrel on there. How do I stand out? How do I get seen on the platform and tell the story of my barrel?
How would you on a stock market?
Yeah.
Well, you'd
This
have
is
some.
going to be those sort of distilleries will be the speculation or the
speculative market.
Yeah. It'll be speculative to a degree, absolutely. The market will sort itself out. So a lot of these questions, we don't know what they're going to look like, but someone's got to develop this and create it and be the guinea pig, right? And Ostra's that guinea pig, right? So I've developed WX500 to solve my own problem, right? And if I have this problem of funding casks, because I need to fund 400 casks a day, and I don't have that sort of money. Right, so you got to build the cask, you've got to make the liquid, you've got to put it into wood, and then you got to wait. You got to wait, and you got to wait, and the waiting's the hardest bit, right?
You're going to wait till it's ready, not when you want it to be ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's a tough gig, you know. And so how do we fix that? And this gives us a potential to support the distillers. To support every distillery and give them the cash flow through that pain to build out their brands and build out their team and build out their brand presence, right? And actually get a better go from an entrepreneurial perspective to succeed in the marketplace. And then as a result, what's going to happen is all of a sudden we've got a much stronger and robust industry.
You're gonna get momentum on this, and I'm going to throw it out there, and I haven't even talked to my wife about it. We're distillery number 2. We'll come on it, Dave. I believe in what you're doing there, and I think.
Thank you.
I want to do it. I don't know what volume. Just remember my garden hose and everything else. But
it doesn't matter, and that's the beautiful thing about it. Do you know what I mean? Because if let's say you buy one of those whiskey books, right? And you glean through the pages, and you got each distillery on a double-sided page. Just imagine that. Right. And then imagine that you can then have that on your screen. So you go into WX500 and you select, Crafty Craig's distillery, and you get that, all the information about the distillery. And then you got access to then feeding off to, the Facebook or whatever your sites are. And then all of a sudden you also got access to all that metadata. So then all of a sudden you go, oh, well, how many casts does he have? Oh, wow, he only put down 5 casts this year. That's rare. I've got to get myself a hand on that. Right. And then because, say, let's take McCallum's, for example, right?
Rare. Yep.
Rare, right? But how many bottlings do they have? How many casks do they have? Does anyone actually know? No one knows except for the distillery. So all of a sudden, right? So stock markets, the way they work is information, right? So if the stock market knows or WX500 knows that you've only laid down 5 casks that year, right? Then everyone knows that that's going to be rare and scarce. And everyone knows in 20 years' time, when you succeed as a global brand, that those bottlings are going to be rare. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Lee's got a good question. What do our friends of the ATO think about the concept?
So I would like to have on this metadata when the excise was paid. We've got the ability to add that data into the system as it's going, right? And so all of a sudden you can then see when that bottling was bottled and when the excise was paid. And I think that's going to be a major game changer for the excise industry.
Okay, that's a good question. We've got another question.
I haven't pitched it to the ATO yet, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Ask forgiveness rather than permission.
Well, it's still carry on. Next one. What
are the anticipated costs for distillers
on the WX?
Okay, so at the moment, when you put your bottle of whiskey onto call it Coles or Dan Murphy's, you got to give them 30 or 40%. You got to give them 30 or 40% margin. So I've got to make WX500 work, right, as a separate entity and self-funded. So I'm toying around the idea of around a 5% mark where you pay a fee of 5% or under to put your cask onto, or your bottlings onto the website.
Yep.
Which I think is fair and reasonable, right? Like, I've got to make sure this thing works. There's a lot of costs behind it.
Yeah, from a nerdy web developer tech basis, I want to have a conversation with you separately about how the hell you've built it. Because
I'm building the plan as I'm flying it. Remember that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. But the technical side of it is very cool. Breathing your tits off.
I've got whiskey to warm me up. So I got distracted, Luke.
No, we can have a nerdy conversation later on. I think we might have missed some questions because they've been coming in thick and fast.
I think we got most of them.
It's a hard one, but I think we should.
Yeah,
do it.
Indeed. All right. Okay.
Here we go.
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
Oh, he's
this is the one thing I live for every single week.
I'm scared.
Right, Todd.
I haven't ordered the stress buses yet.
Yeah, we've got the stress buses are coming. So this is the moment where we throw Todd under the bus. Two reasons. One, to make sure he's still awake. But the second thing is
because it amuses them.
It amuses them. It amuses us no end. And he can be such a sarcastic bugger sometimes. So, but basically we say, Todd, he was, how can I put it? He was the apprentice's apprentice. So I didn't call myself a distiller till after 3 years. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. And
God, I've got a big forehead. Oh my God.
For 3 years, I called myself an apprentice distiller, right? Self-imposed apprenticeship. And Todd was the apprentice's apprentice. So I'm now the distiller, and you're out of your apprenticeship, Todd.
Still not paid though.
Still not paid. So Todd has a series of questions because he only ever works with me. Now that's not necessarily the
best practice.
Best practice, yeah. Probably the best way to describe it. So Todd's got questions on how to do things right. Todd, go.
Oh gee, where do you start with a buffhead like that? He is my shining armor. Keeps me well amused most days. Anyway, my number one question: when you're not doing your grand plan to sort of dominate the world, what do you do in your spare time?
What do I do in my spare time?
Or do you have spare time for starters? That would be a good question.
I do not have any spare time. I have a young son, and he's absolutely gorgeous. He's almost 2 years old. Ooh. And he's a handful. Put it that way. So he's definitely a handful. I'd like to think that I'd read books, but I just can't even turn a page at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a family man.
I mean, we've got a real page turner for you.
That's a good segue.
I was going to say, so it'd be pointless us.
We're going to digress for a second from Dave. So Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit is very proud to announce that this book, get it to the camera.
Oh, there you go.
Is the biography of Jim McEwen. It's a thick fucker.
It's heavy as.
It's as heavy as. You can use it as a doorstop.
It's 68.5%.
It is. And
you're seriously saying this? Use it as a doorstop.
500 something pages. 500 something pages.
Let me count them.
All right, count them. Start counting. Anyway, so basically, through relationships that we have, which we've developed through Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit, we have secured 400 what?
Well, the last chapter starts at 480.
So roughly 500 pages, right?
Yeah.
So it's a substantial book. We got the rights for it to sell it, and we're bringing it into the country.
And we're keeping it to ourselves.
And we're keeping it to ourselves. For Australia and New Zealand. So
right, well, you didn't. You must have bought a digital copy or not one from Australia because you didn't buy it from us yet.
No, you can still buy it online if you want. But anyway, shut up. We're doing ourselves.
What kind of selling books don't you understand?
Anyway, so this is now we go into please mode. So this is to fund our trip. Aussie Craft Distillers shooting the shit to the US next year, which is our very much a completely tax write-off. No, it's not. It's a fully legitimate education tour of the US. There's a number of distilleries want to go to, a number of still makers. There's a whole lot of things happening.
No, Brad, no.
But this book, seriously, for any fledgling distiller, for any
distiller.
No, not Padawan. For any Padawan in the industry, read this book, understand this man, and you will gain a lot on your journey. For any established distiller, you want this on your shelf, and I'll make sure that happens. For any whiskey nerd,
he's going to hunt you down if you don't.
Yeah, I'll hunt you down because
and he's going to hit you with.
Guys, we're bringing in 250 books. All right, we're going to move the units. So, and that's our segue to the book. Details to follow, people. We will be at the Australian Whiskey Show in not this weekend, next weekend. It will be there, and you will be able to buy it, hopefully. All right, back to Dave.
Yeah, I'll get a copy. I'll get a copy
in the same sentence.
Blame DHL.
Have we checked the DHL shipping?
I get paid before you get paid. Let's put it that way.
Say again.
Garth's comment on the screen. I want to get paid before Garth. I've been in the industry. I've been working with you a lot longer.
I'll sort that out, Garth. I've been meaning to get back to you. Sorry, mate.
Phil, details to follow. I'm still building the ordering process. When we get them, when we know that we've got them, we'll put up the ability to order.
So we're air freighted 30 books, and we're sea freighting seriously 250 books because we're backing it. We believe that this is the book that you need for the industry. Dave wants it. That's saying something.
Yeah,
Dave wants a copy.
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
I'm going to read it as soon as I get it.
So there's a book to read,
or you'll intend to read it as soon as you get it.
Yeah,
All
as
right.
soon as my son grows up and I've got I can actually get a minute.
you can have a life again.
Do you want to hear
Dave,
what my son's name is?
Hang on, let's take a guess. Hold on.
You gotta have a guess.
Brooklady?
Close.
No?
Close.
Arbig? Little Arbig?
Oh, so close. You got to go one step back.
Isla? No.
No, one step back.
One step back
From
one step back from Brooklady.
Malt? You calling him Malt?
Jim.
Cooper.
No, Malt.
Cooper.
Oh. I thought Malt was pretty good.
No, any kid that gets called Malt is going to kill their parents in their sleep.
Malted barley, what are you doing? Come back here. Malted barley Ostra.
We're now devolving into just general.
We are.
Yeah, okay. Dave, this is what happens when we get to 1 minute 42. Sorry, things
48 now.
48. Things seem to
I can
break
keep
down.
talking. There's no problem.
No, we'll keep going. We'll keep going for sure. So have we answered all the questions though? I mean, guys,
Does everyone get the concept? Does everyone get it?
I think they do.
Does it make sense?
It's
there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Like it takes a little bit to really understand it.
So when Dave and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and I was driving, and it was about planning about shooting the shit, and Dave said, he said, "I got this thing. I can't tell you. And I went, "No, that's cool. I can wait." And he goes, "All right, I'm going to tell you. And I was driving, and I went, fuck, I better pull over. This sounds pretty full on, right? So the way it went from me was, yep, fuck, Jesus. So, and I've had a chance to think this through and play devil's advocate in my head and no one else, because I haven't told anyone else. And I really think two things. I think, Dave, it's so good to see you, mate, on the field. You're on the playing field. You're one of the team, right?
Giving it a crack.
Wearing the colours, which is awesome, right? Welcome to the team, right? We're out there. But the other thing is, I think it's just such a fascinating concept. And I really think it's going to fly. I reckon you're going to get momentum. You're going to get distillers behind it.
I hope so.
And particularly going into economic hard times, because we're all battening down the hatches and looking for other ways to move our product.
So how will we know? Getting back to your product and your whiskey coming out.
Yes.
How will we know that it's available?
Okay, so I don't do social media very well, but Georgia in the office showed me how to do a post today, and because I was trying to work out how to post, and on my phone I couldn't work out how to post because they upgraded the Facebook thing. Anyway, so I put a post up there today we're soft launching, Ostra as a brand today. And so I did my best to internally rebuilding the Ostra Distillers website, but hopefully this weekend or early next week. So as soon as you can buy a credit card a bottle. Now those bottles I haven't bottled yet, so you won't get them straight away. So that will help fund us to buy the actual bottle itself. So you'll probably get a bottle, say 4 months later. But it gives you the opportunity to send us cash, which we desperately need, so that we can finish building WX500. Because it's really important that we build this as fast as possible, so that we can then open it up as fast as possible to every distiller in Australia and beyond, right? Because I think fundamentally it's going to change and it's going to have major ripple effects throughout the whole industry. Because even if you're a consumer and you're a collector of whiskey, say you want to own that $4,000 bottle of whiskey, you now have the opportunity to buy it as new make in a cask, wait 5 years and pay $100 for it or $200 for it, as opposed to $4,000 for that bottle. All right. And so most of those collectors will go in and they will buy a dozen bottles or a case or two. They will consume a few of those bottles, and then WX500 gives them an opportunity to trade those bottles in the future as collectors, right? And flip them and earn money off them, right? And what that does is, because there's a digital certificate attached to every single bottle with all the information behind it, that digital certificate means that bottle's real and you've got trust and validity that bottle is the real deal, and it comes from that distillery, because the distillery is the one that created that NFT. I didn't mention that. So every bottle or stave is attached to an NFT. An NFT is a non-fungible token, and what that means is we as distillers can put our bottle image on each stave or cask. And then that is our brand. And so all of a sudden, what you'll see in the future is you're trading virtual bottles of whiskey internationally as you see fit, and when you want to on the open market. And this is going to genuinely change our industry moving forward. It gives us still an opportunity to sell our products, whether it's aged or unaged, whether we've got our bottlings that we've saved from our first founders release and we want to put a bottle out there, then you can put it on WX500 and do an auction on it, and if you want, you can donate all your money to a charity or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can utilize this technology, that it just creates so many possibilities around it.
I'm gonna ask a question, and I just forgot what my question was. Shit, it was a really important one. That was a really important one. It was... yeah. Hang on, before I forget, I've got it. I come up with brain fart ideas.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Hang on. Well, it's fresh in my head, otherwise I'll lose it.
What's your question?
There's only so much I can keep.
You've been asking questions all day.
It's a very limited space. If I lose it, I lose it. No, let me go. Let me go. Okay. I propose, brain fart, that I don't know how we do it, but there should be some sort of Zoom session with Australian whiskey distillers. A forum just to talk about this as a collective, Australian whiskey distillers. And it doesn't matter if you're all legal. It doesn't matter if you're bumfuck out of a beer keg or if you've got the monsters like yours. I think it would be a great. It needs a lot of discussion, kicking around with the players.
Primarily,
absolutely. I've got no issue in doing that. The more we talk about it, the more ideas will come out of it, and the more we can put that into action to make sure that this is a really solid way forward. Because we have to make sure that integrity is kept in our industry across the board, and the best way to do that is through transparency, right?
Absolutely.
And this gives us the ability to not only give us the transparency, but it gives us the funding to grow our industry, right? We're behind the Scotch guys by 100 years and the Americans by 100 years, right? The Japanese by 50 years. And we got a lot of catching up to do. And this will give us the opportunity to really drive our brands internationally.
Just going by the comments that we're receiving, I think it's a bit of a field of dreams thing. I think we need to build this, and everyone's going to come on board.
So I'm building it. So I wanted to launch it tonight. I gave my guys the 11th of May a deadline, and they broke it. So they're now saying the 29th of May. So on the 29th of May, what you'll see is you'll be able to buy.
Knowing developers, they'll break that too, but we can stand in hope.
So anyway, so call it late May, early June, But what it'll do is it'll on the first iteration, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to buy a stave out of a cask, right? An Ostra stave, right? And you'll be able to buy that at a huge discount because you're going on the journey with us, right? So I'm proof of concept. So I'm putting my name and myself out there to try and make this work. So you won't be able to trade the NFTs at this stage, right? But in the future, but the next stage would be to take this and put it onto the marketplace. So stage 2 is to build that marketplace. And so we started building it. So I'm hoping 2 months or so, no more than 3, hopefully, we've got the marketplace up and running. Once that marketplace is running and we've tested the intertrading, obviously using me as a guinea pig, then it opens up to other distillers, right, as proof of concept.
I think Andrew Moore, Diamond 6,
I know Andrew.
I don't think it's sunk in yet. WX500 is a global market opportunity that transcends the local market. If you're Dan Murphy's and you're Coles and you're watching this, you're going, fuck. This is
if you're Dan Murphy's or your Coles, we're still looking for sponsors. So just
I'm hoping that this. I would like to say that this WX500 helps everyone in the industry. I don't know what the ripple effects will be as it builds and grows, but how that market shifts and moves. But the transparency will help, and the fact that you'll be able to sell at a with a lower margin, giving away a lower margin will help your bottom dollar as well. So then more funds go into your distillery, so then you can then grow your distillery more and more. I did see a question as well from Ben Israel about can you fund a new distillery through this? Theoretically, Yeah, you can't. And the reason is because you physically have to make that barrel of whiskey before you sell it, right? So you actually have to build the distillery, actually make the barrel of whiskey or cask of whiskey, and then only then can you sell it. So you can't sell something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. I wasn't going to put that one out, but there you go.
Mick,
Who lets him control the buttons? For crying out loud, you know that he's not having
there's no sense.
There is a reason why he doesn't have access to behind me. One minute. The one time he presses the button.
It's the one and only time.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I didn't
Dave.
write it. I didn't write it. Don't blame me. Oh, someone's asked about the books prices. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. We're just finalizing a few details.
$1 million.
And yes, we are going to do a bit of a book tour, a whiskey tour with it as well. That question wasn't asked, but I thought I'd throw it out there like it was a question.
Yeah,
so.
But you will ordering will be done via the Shooting Shit website. So if you're a Facebook follower, it'll follow on Facebook, and we'll put it out on there as soon as it's available to buy.
And we'll also have throw Todd under the bus squeeze toys, stress toys.
Yep, direct from China.
Yep. Shh. Sorry, digress.
Just so, I mean, most of them will be
So
taken.
there's nice squeezy ones, and there's the special ones that I use to throw it.
All right.
Look, we've hit the 2-hour mark.
My one, stress.
Dave,
there's a lot there, mate.
There is a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack. But to sum it up, please support me so I can support you.
Yeah.
Where can people ask you more information? Because I would imagine there will be people with a series of questions. Or do you want to? We just organize a forum and do it that way.
Look, we can do a forum. Look, if you want questions, jump on the ostradistillers.com website, and or follow me on Facebook, obviously, and you can direct message me. Otherwise, yeah, just drop a note on Ostra Distillers, and yeah, we'll email you back as soon as we get a chance, and we can set up a little meeting or a conversation or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, we're going to do a forum. Yeah.
This is highly innovative. It's going to smash a lot of glass ceilings. Sorry, Todd.
Sorry, general consensus is that people would be quite interested in a forum.
Yeah, I think so. It's as you said, it's highly innovative.
A little bit more nitty-gritty.
Yeah. Yes. It's and this I'm building this for all of us. Yeah. So I mean, I built it for myself to help my problem, right? Because I've got such a big site, how do you fund 400 casks a day? It's so much money, right? It's nigh impossible. And without giving away, the distillery to investors or whatever it might be. And so this gives us the opportunity to grow our businesses for everyone, for the whole industry. And it will make us stronger, right? Eventually, it will be open up to all distillers around the world. So, because it is a free market, so we want to make sure that, our friends in Ireland have the opportunity to grow their businesses as well. And I think as a whiskey industry, this will be a real support base for everyone, because we all have the same issue. We all have the same problem, whether you know it or not, is how do you fund future growth in your business? Because if you win Gold Whiskey Award or whatever it might be, right? All of a sudden, everyone wants your whiskey, and then you'll be going, "Dang, I wish I put down more whiskey." Right? That's the first thing you'll say, and then you go, "Dang, I wish I had more money to fund the future whiskey because everyone wants it." Right? And then you're going, "How do I do this?" Right? This gives us the opportunity to actually produce the whiskey that we need, but also produce it for the future demand that we forecast within our own businesses. It'll empower every distiller, basically.
Yeah, very exciting.
I agree. I think on that note,
I hope I blew off some socks off.
Yeah, mate. For an introvert, you did well.
Yeah. Now,
you did very well.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I do need to bring up. Hold on. Where is it?
sponsors.
Yes,
We've
our sponsors for 2023. Even though
we've got a couple more to
Yep.
finalize, but right now these are our sponsors for 2023, 2024.
So we're really pleased to have Voyager Craft Malt.
Yes.
I mean, what more do you need to say?
Stu and Brad, legends.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a Craftworks without a Voyager Craft Malt. That's the best way for me to sum it up.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Absolutely. Youngie, who was I know he was on before. He's probably gone to bed by now, though, the old fella.
So,
Don't say that. He'll cut me. He'll cut me off my casks. And again, if there was no Youngie, there wouldn't be a Craftworks distillery,
and many others. I'm sure. Mogwai Labs.
Mogwai is very exciting, people. Mogwai is Josh, who is into yeast cultures, supplies into the brewing industry and toe in the water in the distilling industry. And I convinced Josh to come on board. It's an exciting brand. It's innovative what he's doing. He'll come out to your shed. He'll harvest, and you can culture your own yeast specifically for your environment. So you want terroir, people. Terroir. We're talking terroir.
There'll be some very special yeast in our shed.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to think
We don't
about
talk
it.
about our shed. We don't talk about our shed.
Oh, the caravan would be.
Oh, I don't want to know.
That's
6 years living in a caravan.
No.
Oh my god.
the fun gene, that one.
Oh God! Talk about sour.
Anyway,
Here we go.
Who's the lady with the barrel on the left in red?
Barrel. No, that's not.
That's Youngie.
He doesn't wear a skirt. It's an apron.
YN Oak Cooperage.
YN Oak Cooperage. Yeah.
Yep.
So Andrew Young in the Barossa. I always pronounce it wrong. Sepulsfield. Oh, I pronounced it right.
Well done.
Saverglass, major supplier of bottles into the industry. Suppliers of bottles to Craftworks. I just wish I had a
If
bit
it
of
wasn't
shed.
for Saverglass,
Say again?
if it wasn't for Saverglass, all of our spirit would be on the ground.
Oh, that's good. That's
Touche.
good. I like it. And the last one, who's not actually signed on yet, but I think they will. CCL Labels again, re-sign. I hope they do because I've just announced them.
Well, they're
Just gave them a
committed
freebie.
now.
They're committed now.
But of course, we've also got the Australian Gin Appreciation Society.
Yep.
I really should put a link up as well for each of these. I'll do that next time because it'll take me too long now. But Facebook page,
One more.
AGAS, Australian Gin Appreciation Society, for all the gin lovers. Jump on there and share the love.
Ben Osborne, cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
indeed.
mate. Cheers,
Cheers,
mate. And one other, Rob Parrott. Rob Parrott is a good mate of mine who has a number of pubs out in the Central West, and him and I work pretty closely together, collaborative. And I said, Rob, I need money. And he went, how much you need? And I told him, and he said, all right. But he doesn't have a logo. So we'll get a logo sorted.
Yeah. A logo and what we're actually promoting. But yeah, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
right.
Rob.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
We'll get there.
Dave, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Please hang around once we
Thank
we
you.
go off air. Thank you all for participating. I will endeavor to get this
Thank you
up.
for our
onto-
sponsors for sponsoring us.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
And can I also
They are
say a big thank you to
great
you guys, because thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my vision and what I'm doing on your platform. And thank you for, this opportunity. And I'm very humbled. So
Yeah,
thank you for having me on.
Mate, I'm looking
Our
forward
pleasure.
to catching up with you in 2 weeks. So
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
yeah, that'll be
That
fun.
will be awesome. And please bring back a sample of some of that chocolate.
Yeah, the chocolate one in
Yeah, the
particular.
chocolate one sounds really awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for those who
Yeah,
don't
please.
know, just a little side thing. Just a little side thing. So we all remember, well, I do, and we're just not resolved the controversy around patents and the use of certain styles of malts. Dave was a big advocate of using roasted malts way back when, as is Cam Syme and many others. So just goes and reinforces the fact that Dave's been around forever and a day. Now you know who he is. He's on the team. He's on the team. He's on the field now. Right? Everyone can see him. Everyone can see what he's up to now. So, Team Australia Whiskey.
Yay!
let's make a big thing internationally with this. You know, let's we're better, stronger together.
It's good, Dave.
100%.
Awesome.
All right, thank you all. Please like and subscribe, and we will catch you all next week.
We will.
Now that we're weekly. So
next
week, Todd, who have we got?
Black Dog.
Black Dog, yes.
Black Dog. Oh yeah. So Black Dog, I'm going to be putting up a sponsorship link. So you're not giving money to us, you're giving money to Black Dog to support mental health. That will be a really cool episode. Thank you all, and we'll catch us next week. Bye.
See ya.